There's no audio here. Just leave it for now. We can fix the rest of it. Turn it off, and then. Well, actually, leave it. Streaming on.
I mean, it's just it's name test.
We can rename it. Later. محمد وآل محمد صلوات صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, we'll get started with our program tonight. Everyone, again, it's okay to sit on the chairs. Anyone who needs to sit on the chair is fine. But to be honest with you, I think it is good for our health to sit on the ground. Our backs become very weak when you give a lot of support to the back constantly. We have a lot of back pain in this country. When we were growing up, we never had back pain because we were sitting on the floor constantly without support. It builds the muscles. So if you want a strong back, I would recommend sitting on the floor. Knee, okay. Was that? It's good for spirituality, yes. No, but seriously, I'm serious. This is much better to sit on the floor. There's a science behind it. Inshallah, we will start the program with the recitation of the Quran, and I will invite Brother Musawwar to do the recitation, inshallah, and then maybe one surah from Qasim as well. But go ahead, Musawwar, please come in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I would like kids need to sit down. Yeah, Qasim, you need to sit down.
Because it's weird. It's like press it, and then if you want to undo, just press
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقذ ظهرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقذ ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب صدق الله العلي العظيم.
MashaAllah, beautiful recitation, beautiful recitation. Brother Asman, do you have anything? Okay, then we're kind of inshallah come. We are running a little late anyways, but without any further delay, I will like everybody to get ready for our main program, which is the lecture followed by the salah. We will inshallah have some matam as well. But as usual, I will like to make a couple of announcements. We are doing excellent with the parking. Everyone seems to be parking in the right place in the back. For the lecture part, I will request ladies again to be respectful, not to speak, and if you have to speak, please go in the back room. There's a room in the back. But I will request humbly for everyone to be silent. During the lecture, this is a spiritual gathering, and we need to concentrate. And for that reason, I would request, especially for the ladies, yesterday also there was some noise coming from the back. And again, I will request our younger brothers, kids, to stay in one place for the lecture. Again, as I said, we will allow them to run around afterwards and get all that energy out and play with the other kids. But for the lecture part, just don't try to not run around here, and for the parents also to try to keep them in one place. Salwa! And I will request our respected speaker, Sheikh Hamza Saudagar, to come in and address the gathering. Salwa.
السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدم الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening the return of our Imam, let's recite the salawat. For his health and well-being, let's recite the second one louder. Inshallah, each and every one of us becomes a true and close companion of that Imam. Let's recite the third one even louder. As I have been requested, the first few minutes I will say in Farsi, and then inshallah I will transition to English. یکی از درس ها و آموزه های کربلا برای همه ما مسئله محبت به امام حسین هست. محبت به امام حسین یک تأثیری در انسان میتونه داشته باشه که کمتر انگیزه دیگری با اون قابل قیاس میتونه باشه. اگر کسی محبت قلبی به سید الشهدا پیدا بکنه، هر چقدر این محبت زیاد بشه با فعالیت هایی مثل زیارت اون حضرت، حالا اگر هزینه بر هست و امکان زیارت حضوری و رفتن به کربلای معلا مشکل هست، بالاخره چیزی نیست که از اینجا به راحتی قابل انجام باشه، مشکلات پیش میاد. حداقل زیارت لفظی، چون معروفه و همه دوستان آشنا هستن با اینکه نیازی نیست که انسان حتما حضوری بره. بله اگر امکانش هست و نره این خیلی بده. حالا من شاید شبهای بعد یه چیزی عرض بکنم. یه داستانی از یکی از بزرگان، یکی از علما که هنوز در قید حیات هست ایشون، شنیدم در رابطه با این به شما عرض می‌کنم از امام زمان. شب دیگه اینو عرض می‌کنم. اگه کسی توانایی رفتن به کربلا داشته باشه و نره، این چیز بدیه. ولی خب خیلی وقتا نمیشه. بالاخره زندگی و هزار هزینه و اینها، رفتن هم حالا گاهی هزینه هم شاید نباشه، بالاخره درس انسان، بیزینس انسان، خانه یه جوریست که نمیشه رفت. حداقل یه زمان کوتاهی، هفته یک بار در ایام سال، هفته یک بار، ماهی یک بار، دیگه اقلش سال یک بار، انسان یک رابطه دلی با حضرت داشته باشه، سلامی بده به حضرت، از واقعا از عمق جان سلام بده. زیارت، حالا همه این موارد که هرچه بیشتر بهتر. بعضی ها حداقل در یک برهه‌ای از زندگیشون روزانه زیارت عاشورا رو تلاوت میکنن. من نمیخوام بگم حالا آدم همه عمرش زیارت عاشورا رو هر روز بخونه. یه مدتی، یکی از راه‌هایی که انسان میتونه این محبت رو زیاد بکنه و این زیارت خوندن زیارت عاشورا. اگر امکانش وجود داشت که بخواد حضوری بره و با ذکر مصیبت سید الشهدا، شنیدن مصیبت سید الشهدا و اشک ریختن برای حضرت، اینها باعث علاقه انسان، محبت انسان به حضرت میشه. هر چقدر این محبت زیاد بشه چند تا اتفاق میفته که حالا مفصل و حتما شنیدید و من فقط یادآوری میکنم. ولی یکی از مهمترین اون آثار اینه، شما اگر محبت به سید الشهدا داشته باشید، باید یقین داشته باشید که هر چقدر نسبت به ایشون محبت دارید، ایشون چند برابر نسبت به شما محبت داره. وقت تصور بکنید که اگه ایشون نسبت به شما محبت داشته باشه، چه لطفی در حق شما خواهد داشت. فکر بکنید در رابطه با این. شما خودتون نسبت به یک کسی محبت دارید، تلاش میکنید هر مقداری که در وسعتون هست، در توانتون هست، به او خدمتی بکنید، کمکی بکنید، در محضرش باشید، چیزی به او بدید اگر داشته باشید. خب توانایی ما کجا؟ توانایی سید الشهدا کجا؟ مقام و منزلت او کجا؟ ایشون نسبت به شما چند برابر محبت داشته باشه، با او توانایی، چه اتفاق میفته؟ چه برکاتی رو در زندگی شما میاره؟ محبت به اهل بیت، محبت به سید الشهدا چیز خیلی خیلی، این که آمده در قرآن قل لا اسألكم علیه اجرا الا المودة فی القربى، بعد در آیه دیگه میفرماید که در دعای ندبه این دوتا آیه کنار هم آمده که و ما سألتکم من اجر فهو لکم، این که یک اجری هم خدا گفت به پیغمبرت بگو من اجری نمیخوام الا این که به این خانواده شما محبت بکنید. بعد اون آیه میگه این اجری هم که خواستم برای من نیست، برای خودتونه. اینطور نیستش که شما محبت به اونها داشته باشید چیزی گیر اونها بیاد، این گیر خود شما، گیر ماها میاد که اگه این کار رو انجام بدیم. انشاءالله که خدای متعال توفیق بده ما محبت هر روز زیادتر بشه و از این محبت بتونیم ما بهره‌مند بشیم. صلواتی نهاد. Apologies for those who don't understand the Farsi language. The topic that we have tried to discuss is related to acceptance of guidance. God provides guidance, and while that is not something in question, the problem is, are we taking the guidance? And what can we do to take guidance that is provided? You can think of every night I try to mention it in a different way because I think it's something that deserves more thought for us to really thoroughly understand it. How could it be that you have someone like Imam al-Hussein available, you have Amir al-Mu'mineen available? Right now we're deprived of that. Right now none of us have access to the Ma'sum of our time. We don't see the 12th Imam. We can't go up and ask him things. We can't hear him, even if we want to. It's just not something we have access to. Right? But they had access to the Imam. They had access to someone that, as it is narrated about Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi, he said, Saluni qabla an tafqiduni, ask me before you lose me. And then he said, according to that account, that I know better the paths of the heavens than I do the paths of the earth. The knowledge that this man had is so much. You have him, without asking him, he's presented guidance to you. Instead of accepting and taking the guidance, you throw it back at him. Why would anyone do that? Why would anyone do that? It's hard to believe. That's how it is. But the fact of the matter is, that's what happens. And as shocked as we are, when we look at that history, we shouldn't think that that's something that doesn't come our way. We shouldn't think that that's for others. And then I'm sure, yeah, of course, if the Imam of our time was right here, if he would walk this blessed, his blessed feet would touch this and give barakah to this center, you'd walk in and say words, all of us would take everything that he said. It's not as easy as that. There are numerous, I've heard growing up, I've heard many scholars give stories of this, different stories. I don't know how many of these stories are actual stories and how many of them are made to get the point across. But I very well remember one story that stuck in my head, and I've mentioned this many times. They say this scholar came to a masjid and said to, he was a regular, the one who led prayers at a masjid. He'd been there for years, and between prayers he would speak and so on and so forth. One night he got up and said, people, all of you every day, you ask Allah to send and hasten the return of the Imam. I ask Allah to postpone the coming of the Imam. Please don't send him. Why? Because I don't see us ready. I don't see myself ready. If he comes, I'm going to fail. He gave that talk a few minutes. That night, when he was at home, he heard a knock at the door. It's the khadim, the person, the caretaker of the mosque. And he says, thank you very much for your service all these years. We didn't like what you said. You can stop coming to this hour. We don't want you here anymore. You're telling us not to pray, or to pray for the 12th Imam's return to be postponed against all the dua. Thank you. Here's your stuff. Here's your sajda. Here's your prayer mat. Oh, thank you very much. We don't need you here. And I said, okay, if that's your wish. Around Fajr time, the same person came and said, begging, please, I'm sorry, please come. I said, what happened? Come on, you can't do this. At night, you're like, don't come. Now you're saying, come, what's going on? He said, well, I had a dream. I had a dream that the 12th Imam came. The first message that came, like, you need to marry this wealthy family's daughter. I was like, okay, that's a great thing. Alhamdulillah. Why not? What a great Imam. And it was scheduled, and in the dream we went through the ceremony. I was married. And the morning after the marriage, the same messenger came and said, now you need to come, and we're going to engage in battle. And he said, I just got married? Can we, a day? 2 days? Do I have time? I don't know, right now. I realized, yeah, you're right. We're not ready. We say, please come right now. If right now, just this second, you hear the 12th Imam saying, if, right? Because we don't know how it's going to pan out. It's just about our readiness. Are we ready to give things up for his cause? We're the ones who gather in the name of the Ahlul Bayt. We condemn the people who made the wrong choices at the time. Well, if he comes and says, well, this is the time, I want you to be here at this time. We condemn the people after the demise of the Prophet when Amir al-Mu'mineen said to them, if I had 313 people, he didn't give the number, he said, if I had the companions, the number of companions that the Prophet had in the Battle of Badr, I would not allow this to continue. I would stop this. They came to him, more than 313 people. 370 people, according to the account, came. And Amir al-Mu'mineen said, okay, if you're willing to do that, come tomorrow. I don't need you now. Tomorrow. Tomorrow came, said, come to this particular spot. According to some accounts, dress this particular way. Shave your hair. and come tomorrow at this particular location in the city. They went, there's 5 people there. 370 shrunk to 5 people. They didn't come. One night. We condemn that. Why did you do that? Why didn't you come? Isn't this deep? Okay. Hypothetically, if he comes right tonight and he says, hypothetically, tomorrow you need to be somewhere else. Sure, the Quran says, if you just don't have the means, you want to go, I want to give everything I have, I just don't, it requires this ticket, I don't have the money, I don't even have enough cash to buy the ticket, I can't take a loan, I don't have credit cards, terrible credit, no money, broke, this, that, okay, no sin on you. But you have it, but it's difficult. Are we willing to? It's not an easy choice. Guidance sounds nice. When you call it guidance, it's great, you know. Why would I reject it when you put it in those words? Why would anyone reject guidance? The problem is guidance sometimes is in the form of war. Okay, bad examples. Bad example. God talks about kutiba alaykum al-qital. Qital is written. You got to fight at times. When it's written, it says the Quran describes this. Some people, when the Prophet's command came, oh, you need to go and fight. Oh, he's fine. You need to go and fight. Some of these guys look like they've just seen a ghost or something. They're about to die. They're dying. Recite salawat. They hated it. They disliked it. They didn't want to go and fight. The guidance that the Prophet brought from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes it was give charity. Some people were stingy. They're not willing to give. How much are you willing to give? Sometimes it's stand up and fight. There's risks attached to it. When it's all nice that, yeah, come and, I don't know, join the Prophet. After the battle, there's wealth to be distributed. Well, they always want it to be there. It's always nice. When it's about taking money, it's great. That guidance is good to take. But sometimes guidance is not like that. For us, we're used to prayer. Those of us who are. Love the prayer, at least the structure of prayer. Like you say pray, like, okay. They learn about this new prayer, fine. Takes 30 minutes, fine, I'll do that. But when the guidance involves something difficult, when it involves something difficult, are you willing to take it? So this is what the discussion is about. How can I live my life? How can I train myself these days, which the tests don't seem to be too difficult, so that when the guidance comes in at a difficult time, and the guidance is you need to do something difficult, that I don't choose like my predecessors where they chose the ease that went against guidance. They chose ease over hardship, but they chose deviation over guidance. They didn't choose guidance because it was difficult. Is there anything I can do that trains me so that when a difficult test comes, I don't refuse it? I don't refuse the guidance because it's difficult. The answer is there seems to be something that the Quran talks about. And it says if you have this quality, guidance is yours. You will take that. What is that? Taqwa. Taqwa is caring. We discussed it in this way. So one way that you can understand taqwa, this is an Arabic word. What's the English equivalent of taqwa? Being careful. That's the English equivalent of taqwa. Be careful. Be careful of what God says. If that's your internal state, if you care for what God says, what happens when you receive guidance? You're going to start taking that guidance. If you continue that, He gives you further guidance. you take that further guidance. You implement that taqwa. In other words, you are again careful. New guidance comes. You learn something that you didn't previously know. And now that you know it, you are careful of that. So you have care, you have taqwa. If you continue with taqwa, if one continues, trains themselves so that they are constantly careful of what God has said, then God says a couple of things related to that. One is what we've already mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. It says, Hudan lil-muttaqeen. Scholars have explained that when this verse says it's guidance for the muttaqeen, for those who are careful, and then the other verse says it's guidance for people, these are not contradicting one another. The guidance is available to all people, whether the person is careful or not. But it's guidance for the ones who are careful means that this guidance will be taken by those who are careful. So God says, if you choose to be careful, if you find that carefulness in you, then you're the one who's going to be taking it. Another thing, another verse that we have in the Quran that is somewhat related to this, but also it adds another point here, another element, another benefit, is the verse that says, Inna Allaha ma'al muttaqeen. God is with you. If you are consistent with, because when you say muttaqi, you're not saying someone that ittaqa Allah fi hadha al-mawqif, the person that was careful of God in this particular time. One time I was careful of what God says. You can't really put that label on the person. The label comes if the person is consistent. Same way that, for instance, bad example perhaps, but just to get the point across, you're not an athlete if you are playing a game of whatever it may be once or twice. Every now and then you play a game. You're not an athlete. An athlete is someone who is constantly training. And the moment they go off track with that and they're no longer training, they're no longer an athlete. A muttaqi is a person that is currently having the quality of care, giving care to what God has said. Consistently, not 1 minute a day, not 2 minutes a day. They are constantly vigilant. Careful. What's the time? Is it salah time? Is it not salah time? There's a situation, I can make a choice. The choice I may make may hurt someone, it may not. Do I say this? Do I not? Constantly what I'm careful of is God okay with this? Is God requiring me to do something? Is God requiring me to stay away from something? Person who's constantly vigilant, careful of what Allah's command is, what He wants, this is called taqwa. If you have this quality with you all the time, consistently, then the verse says, Inna Allaha ma'al muttaqeen. God is with you. God is with you. Part of that is the help that you will receive when the test gets more difficult. Look at the Quran. Look at the examples in the Quran. There's a story in the Quran in a chapter that is called by the name of this story, the chapter of Al-Kahf, the cave. Youngsters, apparently in part of somewhere in the Roman Empire, against their fathers, the rulers of the land, who were pagans, these youngsters rejected the ways of their fathers and said, this idol worship, this human worship, because sometimes they would worship the emperor, this is wrong. We denounce this. We are against this. We worship the one Lord. When God tells this story, it's a very difficult scene. Standing up where you are a small bunch and you are close to the elite, you are the children of the elite. They have all the power, and you want to stand against them. You have two problems. They are the elite, plus they are your parents. It's a difficult thing to do. When God describes this, He says, رَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. We gave them strength to stand and say that. The guidance was, you need to publicly announce this. You need to publicly say this. It's difficult. They know what's going to come, because the story is they went after them. They had to escape. God took them to the cave. They fell asleep 300 plus years. They were brought back to, they were woken from their sleep to see, as God says, that His promise is true. Because at that time it was just a handful of them that were believers. Everybody else was a pagan. And they were told, you do this, you will see, God will make all people accept Him, and so on and so forth. 300 years later, they woke from their sleep, and they saw that it is true. These were all believing in the same thing that they believed in. Inna Allah ma'al muttaqeen. They applied taqwa. They had the spirit of taqwa. They were careful when the command that they understood they need to fulfill, which was to stand up in a difficult session, to stand against people who had that much power, stand against that and speak the truth. They were able to carry out this command. When God describes the scene, He said they were able to do it because رَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. We held their hearts strong to be able to do that. That's divine assistance. If you are careful in these small things that are not too difficult, and you build that as part of your character, such that you just can't. If I want to compare, I don't know if how many of you have been through, some form of training and trying to, eat healthier, go on a diet, get physically trained. Any of these, look it up online and experiment with it a little bit, or maybe you have experience and you know what I'm talking about. Initially, it's difficult. You want to limit your intake of carbs. You want to control that. You have a lot of desire for certain things. And it's difficult choices to make. But if you continue that, eventually, it's easy. I don't even feel like having certain quantities or particular, don't have a desire for it anymore. It's not difficult to avoid. Initially, it comes because I'm so used to it. But eventually, it comes to a point where it's easy. If we practice, if we work on ourselves, train ourselves in the basic tests, which includes an element I'll talk a little bit about. Because when we say easy tests, I'm like, okay, so these are easy tests, we're trying our best, inshallah we're doing it. But there's something where a lot of times it's overlooked. I'm going to talk a little bit about a particular aspect of taqwa that's overlooked. But if we implement taqwa, God says He's with you. You apply it in these more basic, easier tests, and you get the hang of it, you get the spirit in. When it comes to a difficult test, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold you and make sure you do the right thing. Some examples we see today. I don't know if you guys saw Shaheed Hujaji or not. I don't know why that example. Shuhada are all shuhada. It's just this Shaheed came to my mind because I think perhaps a lot of us saw the video of this man being slaughtered or being taken. The strength that this man had standing. How can one have that strength? Well, you apply taqwa when the moment comes. If you have taqwa, God says, He's with you. What does He do? He will hold you. Inshallah, Allah gives us. What is that aspect that I said we overlook? We apply it in our basic tests. One of the things that we overlook is that if you care for Allah, that means you need to go and find out what He has said. You can't just wait on somebody to come and tell you what He said. If you care for what God says, you're searching for what He has said. You will spend time to learn. There's a hadith from Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayh. I think it's relevant to this point. It says, I wish I could use a whip on my followers, on my companions, until they would start gaining deep knowledge of the religion. Now that's the expectation that the Imam had. Gain knowledge of the religion. Like, we're, alhamdulillah, we're born and raised, most of us at least. I don't know if we have converts in the crowd, brothers and sisters or not. Most of us are born and raised with, inshallah, the guidance of the Ahlul Bayt, with the guidance of the Quran. We know a little something, we've heard things. But is that it? Is that all the knowledge? Is that, do we have everything? There's so much. There's so much that's missing. So many times the problems that arise in relationships where we don't adhere to God's law, we don't treat each other based on what God has said. The basic reason for it is, I don't even know. I didn't even come across that guidance. I've just been used to seeing how I learned how to behave based on what I saw others around me behaving like. And that wasn't based on guidance. I didn't hear any better. I don't know any better. I gotta go and learn. You gotta go and find material. You gotta read. You have to think. Reading to learn is part of taqwa. If someone says, inshallah, we have taqwa, I'm like, okay, one of the things you can check yourself. We talked about it. We need to measure. How do we measure ourselves? Am I implementing taqwa? Am I careful of God or not? How much time am I spending to learn more? How much time am I spending to learn more? What am I doing to learn more? What's the last thing I learned? Where did I learn it from? Did I check? If I have taqwa of Allah, another hadith from Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, rahmatullah alayh, a great companion of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. He said, do you think, the Imam tells him, do you think that it's sufficient for a person in order for them to be considered our follower? The word in Arabic is Shia. I don't want to use that only because we use the word, we think it's a label. It's not a label. Being a Shia is not a label. I'm Shia. No. The Imam uses it in the literal sense, follower. Do you think it's sufficient in order to be considered one of our followers for you to love us? Is that the criteria? He says, I'm just narrating, this is in Al-Kafi, in the book, the great book of Hadith that is known, the title, the name of the book is Al-Kafi. Shaykh Al-Kulayni has put this book together. Is it enough, the Imam says, for a person to be our follower, that they have our love? He says, Wallah, the Prophet is greater than us, and loving the Prophet is not enough. How could it be that loving us is enough? We just mentioned earlier in the Farsi part the importance of love. The verse of the Quran talks about love. But if anybody thinks the love is enough, no, it's not enough. To be considered a follower, to be considered a muttaqi. Part of taqwa is following the command that God said, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. This is a command from God. You love the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, that's one thing that God said. That's necessary. Alhamdulillah, you're doing that. Is it enough? There's other things as well. What are the other things that the Imam talks about in this hadith? There's a list of them. One of them is this. The Imam says that our followers should be known for reading the Quran. if you want to know what God has said, if you want to be careful of what God has said, you want to implement it, where do you find that? The best book is His own word. His own word. The Quran, Wallah al-Azim, is God's word. It's from Him. Every single word, every single sentence, every single chapter, every single verse is from Him. You want to know what He asked you to do? What He told you to believe in? What He told you to do? He sent you a book that He has preserved and protected. But here's a problem. One of the biggest problems that our community overall, the Muslim community, faces in this regard. We have developed a way of dealing with the Quran that I can't call reading, but we have called it reading. And once we are able to do that, we think we're good. What is that? To read the words in proper Arabic. If I can say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Learn tajweed, the makharij of the huruf, alphabet, all of that, and then maybe memorize the wording of it, and then every time I read it, yeah, we just did what? Qira'ah. Qira'ah is what? Reading. We read the Quran. Alhamdulillah, some communities in the month of Ramadan, they do khatm. They go from the beginning of the Quran all the way to the end. Together, collectively. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. They begin the Quran until من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس صدق الله العلي العظيم. We read the Quran. I ask you, if you were asked to read any book, you name the book, whatever it is, in whatever language. Let me give a religious book because I think it's good. Let's take Sahifa as-Sajjadiyya. Sahifa as-Sajjadiyya. Well, actually, that's a bad example because that's going to be very similar. Let me give you another example. Al-Kafi, I just mentioned a hadith from Al-Kafi. When anyone tells you you need to read the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt, how would you deal with that? Would you ever go buy the Arabic book as a non-Arab and apply your ability to read the Quran to the hadith book and say, عدة من أصحابنا عن سهل ibn زياد الآدمي عن فلان عن أبي عبد الله عليه الصلاة والسلام قال, the hadith. Would you ever do that? Like, that's pointless. Why? Because I don't understand it. Well, why is it that if I say the same thing, if I tell you a different context, forget religion. If I tell you, did you read this novel? Did you read that book? Did you read what you had to read for your class tomorrow? If I ask you the question, will it ever occur to you to respond to me that yes, I did, if you read it in a way where you have no clue what it says? No, because that's not called reading. That's not called reading. It's not called reading when you are able to pronounce the words but have zero understanding of what the words are saying. That's not called reading. It's never called reading. Ask anyone, did you read Harry Potter's book? Whatever. Other book? Yes. Like, can you tell me, you remember this part of it? No. Why? Because I just learned how to read the English language. I have no idea what it says. Like, what are you doing? What a stupid thing to do. But that's exactly what we're doing. We have developed a method of reading the Quran that looks like and sounds like reading the Quran, but it has nothing to do with reading the Quran. It's similar to it in that it sounds like this person is reading it, but in reality they are not reading it because they have no clue what it says. You read. I'm explaining what Imam al-Sadiq said. The Imam said they should be known for. In other words, they read the Quran so frequently that they are known as those who read the Quran.
What does he mean? Does he mean learn the reading of Arabic and then read it without understanding a clue or having a clue what it says? Or what he means is read it to understand. Another hadith says the Quran is your ahd with Allah. Read some of it at least every day. Can this reading mean just read it without understanding? Does that even make sense? It's like you wrote up a contract, you have a contract, an agreement with someone. Ahd means that you have an agreement with someone. And you have certain obligations in that agreement. And then you read it in a language that you don't understand what it is, but you're told to read it. You say, okay, I learned how to read this in whatever language it is. I can read it in the sense that I can pronounce the words, but I have no idea what it is. Well, you're never going to learn what your commitments are. What's the point of reading that if you can't understand what the commitments are? Reading the Quran doesn't mean learn just to pronounce the words as an Arab, but have zero understanding of what it says. This is a very counterproductive method that we have developed. Because as soon as a child, and I'm guilty of this myself, as a child I learned. I love the recitation of the Quran. What do I mean by recitation? I love, like Abdul Basit was big at the time when I was a child. God gave me a little bit of a voice, and I'd like to imitate Abdul Basit. Surah Al-Ham, Surah Al-Duha, all these. And then they say it's good to memorize. I memorized the 30th juz because my dad gave me an incentive. As a 12-year-old, I think. I was 12 when he said, I'll buy this for you. We went and memorized, me and my brother, we memorized the 30th juz of the Quran. Surah Al-Duha is one of the chapters. I had zero understanding of what Surah Al-Duha is for I don't know how many tens of years. Because when we go to the Hawza, one of the unfortunate things in the Hawza is the Quran is not a textbook. The Quran is not a text that is focused on. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. So in the Hawza, nobody went over Surah Al-Duha. I didn't have any class that any teacher went over Surah Al-Duha. I memorized this when I'm 12. Maybe 5-10 years ago on my own, Allah helped me. Sometime I sat down like, what is this Surah Al-Duha? You read it. I had learned Arabic grammar, okay? But it wasn't good enough to be able to, you gotta sit down a little bit, work with the vocabulary, pay attention to, then eventually you come to know like, oh my God, look at the guidance in this chapter. Earlier, the chapter that was recited, Surah Al-Inshirah, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Did we pay attention to what is being said? Inna ma'al usri yusra. فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. We understand what is being said here? No. Okay. That's not called reading. If we want to be careful of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, one of the overlooked aspects of that is going to find what He has said. Learn what He has said. And the best thing you can do for that is to learn how to understand. I have to put that word in there because reading no longer means reading to understand. Unfortunately, although the word in every other context means read to understand, when it comes to the Quran, the only book that when you say reading, it doesn't mean to understand. So I need to add that word. Go understand what God has said. He has considered those words to be so important that He revealed those particular words upon the Prophet in order the Ahlul Bayt to spend those 250 years between the demise of the Prophet and the beginning of the minor occultation. 11 Imams to preserve the text of the Quran. It's that important. If you want to care for what God has said, can you care for what He has said, but then never try to understand what He said? Doesn't make sense. One of the areas of being careful of what God has said is taking the time to figure it out. And the easiest way right now, okay, long-term plan, I hope all of you attempt at least to get the tools necessary, which is the Arabic language. Familiarize yourself with the Arabic language, not because we want to be Arabs. God says there's no preference over any ethnicity, any language. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ اخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُم. Your languages being different is a sign of God. Your language isn't bad if it's not Arabic. All your languages are signs of Allah. Every single language, every single color, every single ethnicity, every single culture. These are ayat of Allah, and we use different reasons to prefer one over the other. The Quran is clear. There's no preference for any culture, any person, any language, any color, any race, any ethnicity, any tribe, none of that. Except بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. And we have left that and we're using these other things to prefer one over the other. It's taqwa, that's it. So you're not trying to become Arab. You're trying to see what God said. This God says, God sent this book in Arabic. You want to understand it? Go learn Arabic. Long-term plan, do go and try to learn Arabic. And for Arabs, I don't know, I'm not Arab. But I've heard this multiple times from Arabs. That, yeah, our language is Arabic, but understanding the Quran is not as simple as just having the conversation. You know, you got to do more to understand what this is. Learn, whatever. The point is, learn how to understand the Quran on your own. But before you get to that, you have translations. At least read translations. Think about what is being said. Find a dictionary. Compare the translation to the wording you can find. At times, think about it a little bit. We need that, inshallah. Allah gives us the tawfiq to be able to do so. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alaykum ya Ahla Baytin. وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you. It was in your homes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with guidance and revelation. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you. Angels descend upon you, visiting you day in and day out. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Mazlum. Ayyuha al-shaheed بكربلاء عطشان. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved Imam al-Hussein. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved oppressed Imam. The Imam who was slaughtered by the Euphrates while his mouth was dry of thirst. روحي فداك يا أبا عبد الله. The first of the companions of Imam al-Hussein to lose his life in the way of Hussein is Muslim ibn Aqil. When the Imam sent him from Mecca to go to Kufa to see how loyal the people are, if there are significant numbers, Muslim went. People gathered, 18,000 people pledged allegiance to the Imam through Muslim. Muslim writes a letter to Imam al-Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, this many people pledged allegiance, they already come forth, come to Kufa. The people are supported. But Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was sent to Kufa. Day after day, things became more difficult. Eventually, there came a time Muslim led the prayers in the masjid. When he began the prayers, there were still a good number of people behind him. When the prayers were finished, Muslim turns around. There's barely anyone with him. He starts walking the streets of Kufa, the alleys of Kufa. Eventually, no one's with the Muslim. I don't know what's happening in the mind and the thoughts of Muslim, but I think he's thinking, why did I write the letter to Hussein for him to come? I wish I could write another letter to him. Don't come to Kufa. He goes and sits down somewhere. A lady comes out asking him, oh man, you don't seem to be from this city. She didn't recognize him. He said, yes, I'm not from this city, so I don't have a place. She said, well, come on in, after she knew who he was. But the lady's son was not a pious man. Later he came home, realized there's someone home. He quickly realizes who it is, and he knows the rewards that Ubaidullah has set for anyone who gives information on whereabouts of a Muslim. He escapes the house, he goes and brings Ubaidullah's troops to the house. Muslim fights a good battle. Eventually he's outnumbered. He is tied up and taken to the Darul Imam. Imagine Muslim, his lips are bleeding, many wounds on him. The verdict is given, take him above the roof, behead him in public. Muslim is asked, would you like something before you are executed? Apparently they say he asked for water. There's something about the shuhada of Karbala and not being able to quench their thirst before their shahada. They say they brought water, but the Muslim, his lips are bleeding. He tried to take a sip of the water. He saw the cup was filled with blood. He can't drink it. Ya Hussein, I think at this point when he's taken up, Muslim's heart is calling to Hussein. Ya Hussein, don't come to Kufa. There's treason in Kufa. They are preparing their daggers for you. Ya Hussein, I can see your children by the hands of the Kufans. Don't come to Kufa. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم بالزهراء وأبيها وبعدها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها بك يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وعلى محبة أوليائك يا حسين.
Patka